Very good evening, everybody. Welcome to those online and those in the public gallery and our guests here assisting us this evening. There are no planned fire drills during this meeting. If you hear the fire alarm sound, please treat it as a real emergency and evacuate the building via the nearest safe escape route. The nearest escape route is via the stairs to your left as you leave the council chamber or public gallery. Exit via the door at the back of the building and walk across the inner car park to the evacuation point, which is the pavement opposite the police station. The lifts can't be used in the event of an emergency, and please do not re-enter the building until you are advised it's safe to do so by a member of staff. I'd like to advise both members of the public and the press, this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live. Mobile phones, please, they should be switched off unless they are being used for the meeting. Please only speak when I ask you to do so and speak clearly into the microphone. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Penn for his recent report, and it's been suggested that the chair should read out some degree of, well, I'm not going to say riot act, but a little bit of a reminder for members ahead of tonight's meeting. A riot act, I feel, and it's not your words, Mr. Penn, obviously, it's a tad, I feel, condescending to adopt that approach. Instead, I reflected on why I put my hand up for this in the first place. I saw things in Binsted and Fishbourne neglected and ignored, and at that time, I just brought my second child into this world, and that also provided motivation to run for council. We all want the best for our families, friends and community, so I stood in the belief that I could make a difference. As it transpires, you don't get a coconut every time, but you should try. And one day we will get suds in Binsted. That's down the line, but there we go. I signed on the dotted line, just like I did in the army, and like Councillor Ward, only this contract was our code of conduct and the Nolan principles, the foundation of integrity, honesty, openness, and respect that underpins public service. These principles should perhaps remind us all why we stepped forward in the first place: to serve our wards, support our neighbours, and work for the well-being of the island as a whole. All of us in this room get on. Everyone in here is a decent person. We're here as representatives entrusted with a serious responsibility to conduct the community's business professionally, respectfully, and in the best interests of those who placed their trust in us. I was proud to be a soldier. Well, I'm proud to be a councillor. I'm proud to make a difference, and I'm proud to be up here wearing the chain of office. Our debates may be passionate and our views may differ, but the diversity of thought is part of what strengthens local democracy. So with that in mind, let us treat one another with courtesy, listen with an open mind, and respect the rules that ensure fairness and order, not in just this meeting, but all of those in the future. There we go. Moving on, I'd like to introduce and welcome Councillor Bill Nye to the chamber. You can put your hand up, Bill, just so everyone can see you. There you go. You're very, very welcome. It's nice to see you and welcome aboard. Thank you. Apologies have been received from Councillors Dave Adams, Paul Brading, Carl Love and Joe Robertson, and I'm told Councillor Lucioni will be... Where are you? Oh, there you are, sorry. Did you? Fair enough. I'm on a few antibiotics this evening. I've had a terrible stomach this week. But anyway, Councillor Brodie has advised that he will not be in attendance. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Redrup, the elder, is not here either.
Councillor Redrup, the elder. Have you his permission to say that? Redrup, the elder.
He's not here to complain.
I said that. Right. Are there any more apologies? No. A rather bit of sad and sombre news, members, as well. I'd like to advise members of the passing of former Isle of Wight councillor John Howe. John served as a councillor for Tottenham's electoral division from 2001 to 2021. While a councillor for Isle of Wight Council, he sat on a number of committees, including planning, licensing, and children and young people scrutiny panel, to list a few. He also served for a considerable number of years on Totland Parish Council. Cllr Jarman indicated earlier today he would like to say some words, and then I will open the floor to others with some comments perhaps of reflection. Cllr Jarman, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the residents of Totland and Cornwall and myself, it's with great sadness that I report the passing of my predecessor and great friend, John Howe. John was born on our island in 1942. He married Pat, who I knew very well, in 1970, and their son Paul was born here in 1972. John was a Totland Parish Councillor for over 50 years and an Isle of Wight Councillor for over 20. He was my proposer and mentor, leading to my election as his replacement as Ward Councillor for Totland and Cornwall. John was held in the highest regard by the residents of Totland and the wider West Wight community. Many will recall his dedication to help Totland bloom, to the preservation of Totland Pier, and to local facilities and businesses. Indeed, no one could have done more to support the well-being of Totland residents. John was also chair of Totland Parish Council, chair of the trustees of West Wight Nursery, helped with Abbeyfield, local schools, and the West Wight Sports Centre. He volunteered as an ambulance driver, worked the lighting for local shows, and always known as one who quietly stepped in when others needed help. He always believed that even the smallest act of kindness could make life brighter. John's convivial style endeared him to all and enabled him to excel in his council life. He loved every minute of it and enjoyed positive relations with fellow councillors and officers. John Howe, 1942 to 25, a big man with a big laugh and an even bigger heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Cllr Jarman. Sorry for your loss. Would any other member present tonight like to say any words? Matthew, Councillor Price.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I didn't have anything prepared to say for this evening, but John was already a councillor when I first was elected in 2013, and he was always very welcoming to me, even though we were obviously in a different political group. We had some, really great conversations on the planning bus, sometimes going to 6 different sites, which is almost unheard of these days in planning. But I spent actually quite a lot of time with John in and out of the chamber, a really lovely man. And one other thing that he did teach me to do, which I think is very relevant this evening, is that he told me how important it is to always thank staff and officers, which is something he always did publicly in this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you. Councillor Garrett, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. John's time and my time overlapped on this council for one term, but I want to particularly associate myself with both the words of Councillor Jarman and Councillor Price. They sum up the John that I knew. John was, of course, for a while a councillor on this authority in the Liberal Democrats. He left party to Citizen Independent, but he never left his liberalism as well. He was a liberal man to the core and served this island immensely well. My recollection of him, though, yes, he was a big man. I'm not so big. And with a big character, big laugh, but a fundamental decency and honesty, and in line with something that we're going to be discussing later, just respect for everybody, and was, in the sense, the model of the very best of a councillor, and he will be sorely missed by those who knew him most well, and sorely missed by members of my party who knew him very well as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Councillor Ward, Ian.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm saddened to hear this news. John Howe was how everybody describes him. He was always a cheerful guy. I tried to talk him out of retiring, I said, why do you want to do that? You know, you're doing a great job here. I've had enough, Ian. He said, you know, it's time for me to go. And quite literally he has, and I'm very sorry to hear that.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Anybody else? Thank you for those. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ian Stevens.
Thank you. I wasn't going to say anything. I think it's all been said, but I feel it would be rather remiss. John and myself got elected at the same time, came through the doors at the same time, and undertook our members' training at the same time. And I would say that we followed it to the letter. And the Nolan principles were there. I'll tell you what, John Howe didn't need the Nolan's principle because he gave respect to all, both fellow members, no matter which political group they were in, and also to all the officers. He actually proved a point, and a point that should be noted tonight is that you haven't got to push the door down to get to officers. Be polite, knock the door and go in and speak, and and treat them with respect as you would want to be respected yourself. But John was great in the group, because I was a Lib Dem at that time, in the group, in the chamber, in committees, because once again we had similar seats on various committees. So he actually covered a hell of a lot. He was a hard-working councillor in the Isle of Wight Council, and as Cllr Jarman said, you know, he shifted heaven and earth for the West Wight and Totland, most definitely. So, you know, it's a very sad occasion. Very, very sad to hear this, and I can only say that, you know, he was missed before, but now he's not there. He's going to be missed even more by members of this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Fuller, Paul.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I served a long time with John. We often used to have a bit of a giggle on the planning bus together at some of the behaviour of other people, and he used to say, "Well, you know, Paul, this isn't the way to do business," and he was brilliant. He actually, one of the things he taught me was about the importance of engaging with the community. And boy, did John engage with his community. I remember when he was he had a responsibility over education. He didn't have to, but he decided to go around all the schools, and he would be talking to the head teachers, and he was talking to the head teachers about how school works, because he really had an interest, not necessarily in advancing sort of like learning, but in the children themselves and the background of the children themselves and the families, and working with those communities to make sure that those communities and what he was given was stronger. And I think that was a lesson to us all. I think we're all here, we're all wanting to do the best for our community. And, you know, even though we did used to giggle on the school bus together when we used to go out on the planning applications, he was a very, very hard act to follow. So I will miss John very much. He was a very dear man, very close friend. And the world is a sadder place without John's smiling face.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller, and thank you everybody for those tributes and very fitting words. Councillor Jarman, would you be kind enough to pass on any funeral arrangements as and when they are known?
Happy to do so, Chair. Thank you. And if I may indulge you, perhaps a suggestion that a message is sent back by me, if you'd like, to his son Paul and family. Absolutely.
Thank you, Chris. We will now move on to the agenda, and the first item is the minutes. To approve the minutes of the following meetings: full council the 17th of September 2025 and the extraordinary full council meeting on the 1st of October 2025. All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. You sign these. Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Redrup, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. I need to announce a interest in 7B because one of the leases listed are a customer of my family's business.
Thank you, Councillor Redrup. No more? Thank you. Moving on to, oh, sorry, Councillor Jarman.
I don't want to prolong this, Chair, but I had reason to ask this question and was told that there is a standing dispensation for us on the island planning strategy, lest people are concerned that any of the items within that this evening may affect them. It does me, but we have a formal dispensation in place.
Thank you, Councillor Jarman. Councillor Jarman, Chris.
Chair, we did have a number of declarations previously, and I think there may, I'm looking at the acting monitoring officer, senior governance officer, I get it correct one of these days, sorry about that, regarding a standing dispensation for members who are here also members of the or beneficiaries of the pension scheme. If I could just confirm that. Thank you.
Councillor Garrett, Andrew.
Yes, as I did declare it also at Policy, Finance and Resources, as far as the decision making is going on the Pan Mugger, just to declare, because that's associated to Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council, I am a member of that Community Council. It's a non-pecuniary interest, and I don't think I'm otherwise constrained on that decision.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Julie Jones-Evans.
Thank you, Chair. It's a ditto from me regarding Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council regarding the Mugger, non-pecuniary.
Thank you. Councillor Price, Matthew.
Yeah, the same for me, as I'm a member of Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council, but also I have been involved throughout negotiations with the council and the community council as a governor at Barton Primary School. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. No more. We move on to public question time. We have written public questions from, I hope I'm pronouncing this right as well. My sincerest apologies if I don't get this right. Mrs. J. Agricola. Mrs. Agricola, please stand up and introduce yourself onto the microphone. I believe this is being directed to Cllr Jarman. Just press that little red, the little grey button on the right-hand side then.
Right. Do you want me to read the background or just straight into the question?
If we could go straight into question, that would be advantageous because we have got quite a lengthy agenda tonight, and it is here written anyway. So if you could, that'd be lovely.
Right. As the committee believes that companies should be aware of the potential risks associated with adopting practices that are socially, environmentally or ethically unacceptable, and then there's a quote for the Isle of Wight PFC issue 3, 14th of the 2nd, 24, item 9 ESG policy, and as of the 12th of November 2025, not yet updated. Can the chair please confirm or deny whether the committee has entered into the breaches log that by investing their members' funds in companies involved in war crimes and genocide, that they're violating international law, the Genocide Convention and Rome Statute, to say nothing of breaching their fiduciary and statutory duties towards their members? And if not, why not? I was going to get a written response, apparently. That's what I got.
Councillor Jarman is going to share that response with you.
Thank you.
Chris.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Mrs. Agricola. I have a response furnished kindly by the officers, and I'll read it. The National Scheme Advisory Board, acting in response to this issue, being raised at a large number of administering authorities, sought leading council advice on behalf of the scheme late last year. The opinion was given by Nigel Giffin, KC, and a full statement of his opinion can be found here on the National Scheme Advisory Board website. It is a public document. The written response will contain that link. Specifically, King's Counsel was asked for an opinion on the allegation that funds might face future criminal action by the International Court of Justice or have liability in domestic law under the Terrorism Act 2000 or the International Criminal Court Act 2001 as a result of holding such investments. Among the KC conclusions was that any suggestion of criminal act liability on behalf of administering authorities was misconceived. That advice still stands at a national level. On this basis, the view has been taken that there is no requirement to include on the breaches log any violation of international law in this respect, as there is no breach to report through the committee, although the committee will continue to monitor the situation. You may wish to invite a supplementary.
They may indeed, councillor.
Thank you.
Mrs. Agricola, do you have a supplementary question?
No, it
Thank-
was what
thank-
I was expecting.
Thank you for participating this evening. Thank you.
I presume that this was the Mr. Giffen's report from October and not the one from January. And I don't know whether there's been any other updates since then, as we're not allowed to know.
Well, thank you for taking part this evening. The second question comes from a Miss M. Barrett. If you could just state your name, please.
My name's Marilyn Barrett. I'm also a member of the local government pension scheme.
Thank you very much. Please, your question.
Without being able to have enough words to read the background, I've had to trace it to, with reference to Nigel Giffen, KC, legal opinion, 13th of January 2025, specifically paragraphs 17, 18, 77, 38 to 40 and 59. Does the Pension Committee and the Council recognise scheme members of the LGPS as major stakeholders? And if so, when can the members expect a written communication from the fund informing them of and requesting their views on the current situation in respect of the fund's investments in Israeli war crimes? At the same time, please, explaining the rationale behind the scheme members' exclusion from public committee meetings about the very future of their scheme and investments by using the questionable reason, quote, and in all the circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information, i.e., how does the committee weigh up the balance between public interest by exemption and public interest by disclosure in respect of major share stakeholders of the fund?
Thank you very much, Ms. Barrett. The committee chair, Cllr Jarman, will respond. Chris.
Again, thank you, Mrs. Barrett. Again, I've been furnished with a response kindly by the officers involved. This is a remarkably serious matter, and I will stick to the wording of what I've been supplied with. Otherwise, I might be tempted to drift off into personal introspection, which would not be helpful. The legal opinion referred to was supplied to by the National Scheme Advisory Board and subsequently shared with all local authority pension funds. The Pension Committee has discussed the issue of Israeli-linked investments on the 3rd of September 2025 in response to a motion considered at the meeting. This followed on from previous discussions at earlier meetings. The fund exists in a heavily regulated environment, and it is required to ensure its approach to investment reflects relevant regulatory and legislative requirements. This is to promote decision-making that reflects the best financial interests of the fund, members and employers. The fund also maintains a set of agreed investment beliefs and makes decisions in accordance with these too. When considering what are complex matters, pension committee members have a responsibility to receive proper advice from individuals with the appropriate level of expertise before making decisions. Investment and legal advisors support the committee's knowledge and understanding of investment matters to ensure that the fund is compliant with all regulatory and legislative requirements. The discussions and papers on the motion tabled on the 3rd of September meeting of the committee were of a confidential nature, with much of the information emanating from third parties who must give consent to sharing their work. This information was intended to ensure the committee had access to all relevant external advice, as well as legally privileged information from lawyers that highlighted various regulatory requirements that the committee would need to take account of when making any decision. I would highlight that for transparency and recognizing the public interest, the vote on the options available was held in public session following the debate, and that this is recorded and available on the council website. I would also highlight there is no evidence of the fund investing in Israeli war crimes, as the question describes it. As considered by the pension committee previously, there is no definitive list of companies guilty of this that can be applied. Furthermore, the considered opinion of Nigel Giffing KC, shared with all local government pension schemes, pension funds, included a conclusion that regarding suggested criminal liability of administrating authorities or their officers or members, I consider that any attempted prosecution would be misconceived because merely to make an ordinary investment in a company will not in normal circumstances amount to assistance in that company's activities. Still less will it amount to assistance in the commission of the criminal acts, if any, of a person to whom that company supplies goods and services as part of its business. In terms of any consultation, once the committee considers its investment strategy and its approach to environmental, social governance matters, as it is in the process of doing, the committee will no doubt hear from officers and advisors regarding options on what should come next for any consultation work. Thank you.
Thank you, Cllr Jarman. Have you got a supplementary question?
Yes, please. I would like to ask for an answer. Does the pension committee and the council recognise the scheme members of the LGPS as major stakeholders?
Cllr Jarman.
I don't believe we have a formal definition of the term stakeholder. They are beneficiaries of the pension fund, that is correct. And through the employer organisation to which they belonged, they are members of the scheme. So we have a tiered system there with the fund itself, and then the employers, and then the employees behind that. The employees are represented on the pension fund by an employee representative, and the employers are likewise represented on the pension board, which oversees the actions of the pension fund.
Thank you very much, Cllr Jarman. Thank you very much for participating this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have one final question from the Youth Council. It was submitted after the deadline, but we will take that this evening, but we're going to have to limit it to that because we have got a packed agenda. I believe there was a response drafted, but we've got the Youth Council member here. Perfect. Find a microphone and, microphone 57. There we go. Please pose your question and I'll find someone to answer it for you.
Thank you, Chair, and sorry for the late submission. Our question to the council is, what steps is the council taking to create more training, apprenticeships or career pathways in sustainable agriculture on the Isle of Wight so young people can enter and support our island's farming future?
Thank you very much. Very good question. I didn't catch your name because I didn't ask it, actually.
Apologies, Chair. My name's Finley Diffie and I'm accompanied by Jamie Hancox.
Nice to meet you.
You councillor.
No problem. That will go towards Councillor Julie Jones-Evans.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for your question and coming this evening to take part in this council meeting. I have a response for you. The council is providing inclusive careers and progression support for all young people, including those with special educational needs and disabilities, SEND, and care experience young people. We are in the process of expanding our service offer, including engaging with sustainable agriculture on the Isle of Wight to reach more learners, especially those most at risk of becoming not in education, employment or training by the age of 16. Through the SEND Employability Forum, we are developing a sustainable supported internship programme for the island, working with the national charity DFN project Search to create pathways into council roles and with other employers. We're introducing vocational profiling from Year 9 for young people with an Education, Health and Care Plan, EHCP, to inform career planning. In addition, the Modern Work Experience Initiative, led by the Solent Careers Hub, supports schools in meeting Gatsby benchmarks and connects them with employers across diverse sectors, including agriculture. We're also preparing for adulthood audit across the education system in partnership with the National Development Team for Inclusion to strengthen transition planning and improve life chances for young people. Alongside this, the Isle of Wight National Landscape Team works closely with farmers through farming in protected landscapes grants and farmer clusters, and coordinates activities with the Young Farmers Club via the Wight Rural Hub. While sustainable farming presents cultural and economic challenges, the Isle of Wight National Landscape has applied for National Lottery Heritage Fund support to deliver a programme of nature recovery in West Wight, including workshops and seminars on regenerative farming aimed at young farmers. These initiatives reflect our recognition of the need to promote sustainable farming practices across all generations. In addition, the council established a skills board in partnership with Education Skills and business stakeholders to drive training and development. The board's priorities include developing a community careers hub to clarify and promote career pathways, encouraging meaningful work experience and internships, promoting training and development opportunities, and supporting business grants to increase training and job creation. These actions form part of the Emerging Growth and Prosperity Plan, which places the development of young people in the rural economy at its core. Together, these efforts aim to ensure that sustainable agriculture becomes a viable and attractive career option for the next generation on the Isle of Wight. I'd just like to add, we also have the Economic Development Board, which I sit on as a member along with the chair, and we have a very diverse field of sectors represented on that board, and I can tell you that the hottest topic of conversation is always young people, always. And we do have the rural sector is represented, and they do attend the board, so that voice is always there at the heart of what we do at the Economic Development Board. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Do you have a follow-up question, supplementary?
No, Chair, but thank you very much for that response, and thank you for allowing us to set our question.
Absolute pleasure to have you with us tonight. It really, really is. Thank you. Oh, blimey, where are we? Wow, me, great. Announcements for the Chair of the Council, and then perhaps Councillor Jordan. Right, I'm going to try and keep this brief because we have got a lot to get through. So, been out and about as per the Learning Awards, first of all, at Westridge Leisure Centre. That was very emotional. That was good fun, wasn't it? It's one of those ones you walk in, sometimes you've got an idea in your head of what you're going to say, and then the room just flips it. It was so emotional, and every person that had been affected by something, I felt something like that myself. Councillor Andre was there, Mr. Whitaker was there. It was a phenomenal evening of awards with an amazing people there. incredible teamwork from Isle of Wight Council officers and brilliant partnership working too. So I'm so excited to be invited to that, and it really was a pleasure. Some silliness thrown into the mix as well. For the first time, I think, the chair of Isle of Wight Council has DJ'd at a charity event for Decadence in Cowes with the chain on, raising some money for the hospice. And then myself and Councillor Quigley, MP that he is now, we indulged in a firewalk at Haven Street, raising money for the RSPCA in Godshill. And I think we hit over £6,000, not us personally, but we were there to support. And that was good fun. The RNLI, I arrived for a board meeting, took place in that. Field of Remembrance up at Carisbrooke. Councillor Ward was present for that. That was absolutely phenomenal. The Remembrance this year, the Remembrance service and event in Newport was phenomenal. And a lot of that is down to the civic team and the people that pull that together. So I'd like to thank Christy, Martin, Simon, and the rest of the civic team that support that. Obviously, Carisbrooke and Newport Town Council for supporting that. The Church, the Royal British Legion. There were some incredible people there, not least the veterans who attend and march, but the youngsters and the Cubs and the Scouts and all the associated military associations that get in there. But before I wind up, I'd like to throw this into the mix too. We had the last post played on the very bugle that was used by Isle of Wight Rifles in Gallipoli 110 years ago. Now, tactically, it's not a good idea. Bugles are quite loud, and this one was quite shiny. Consequently, Major Peachy was shot, but he survived. But we had it there. It was emotional to say the least, and it was Abby that works for the council that played the last post. And if that wasn't enough, Lance Corporal, well, let's get it in the right order. Seb Drake, who's a cadet, he read the exhortation. Then you have the Act of Remembrance, and the Kohima Epitaph was read by Lance Corporal Matt Drake, who works downstairs in council as one of our solicitors. So the tie-in for that, there's a lovely piece of generational history being made there, but also it's great for us, for Isle of Wight Council, as an Armed Forces Covenant member and one of the gold holders. I think we're one of 2 or 3 on the island, but it's well respected. So for all that attended Remembrance and supported what is a vital calendar date, thank you very much. And yeah, there'll be more in January. Thank you. Chair, so Leader, have you got anything to report?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry? Yeah, well, I've just made a couple of words. I was to say, clearly the leader role is not as interesting, exciting, fulfilling and fun as the chair's role. It's nonetheless as challenging a role, but it's not quite as much fun, I can assure you of that, Chair. But thank you for all you do on our behalf as a council and our community, representing us all at important events. So we do thank you for that. Look, a couple of very quick roles and mentions, then we can move on. Two things. One, I'm going to ask for your participation in. One, I'm not. The first one is just a very, very quick update on devolution in terms of the setting up of the combined authority. We have been out to advert on the 3 key roles, the chief exec, the monitoring officer, and effectively it's a section 17, but section 151 financial officer. We've been successful in attracting very good applicants for the chief exec role. We've shortlisted to 3. And looking at in the shortlisting, looking at the quality of those 3, I will be absolutely astounded if we don't appoint one of those 3. But they are to go through an interview process on the 1st of December. We were unfortunate in the monitoring officer and the section 151 officer in finding any suitable applicants that met the requirements or the standards we were looking for. And so we are going out again and readdressing that issue. We are still on track for next May, and for a shadow authority to be in place around March or April next year, although it won't operate until the mayor's elected. So that's an ongoing on devolution. The second thing, I want to thank Wendy, our Chief Executive, for sending round today the consultation link on local government reorganisation. It seems that government managed to confuse and confound us at every turn, in that we are required to respond to the consultation as a council. So the consultation's out to residents and people across the Solent region, but we as a council, along with the other councils, need to respond to the consultation. Consultation ends on the 11th of January before our next full council meeting. So what I'm going to suggest to you, and where I need your very quick and swift participation, is I propose that there are two things we could do. We, the chief exec and I, could create a draft letter. We could create a draft response that will be filled into the form and circulate that for comments, any amendments or suggestions and approval. Or we could call an extraordinary general meeting between now and the 11th of January to do the same thing. So what I'm asking for is not a vote, just a show of, would you prefer us to call an extraordinary general meeting, or would you prefer us to do this by email? Let me just I'll put the first one first. Those that, will you just indicate and help us on this by showing, would you prefer us to do this by email? Those in favour of doing it that way, please show. Look, that's pretty unanimous. I won't, let's not do an EGM. It's expensive just for us to agree a consultation. Thank you for that. That's really helpful to us as a council to get that done. And we'll find a way of circulating that over the course of the period. Appreciate all of your comments that you may want to make. Thank you for that. That's me done, Chair.
Really is, isn't it? Thank you for that. Head of Pay Service, anything to bring to the table this evening? Wendy.
Thank you, Chair. Not necessarily in my role of Head of Pay Service, but just to add to what the leader was saying about the consultation that's come out this afternoon. It is a consultation, so it's a consultation response that's required. You won't, in responding to the consultation, be making the decision on what happens with LGR. That decision rests with government. So what is required of the council is a consultation response, and therefore the proposal that the leader has put forward is an appropriate route through which you can give voice to your views on the consultation on local government reorganisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Report of the Monitoring Officer, Francis.
Thank you, Chair. Members will have the report in front of you. This report is about political balance, and there have been changes in the political balance of the council, in that we have a new councillor, welcome Councillor Nye to the council, and there have been changes to the ABC group, and that's and changes to the non-aligned councillors. So that of itself has triggered a need for us to run a proportionality political balance calculation. So what members have in front of you is the report. There are a number of principles that we apply in reaching the calculations we do, and those principles are in the report from A to D. Essentially, this is a mathematical calculation in terms of the entitlements groups have on to committees. The requirement is for proportionality across the council, so the number of seats that are available and applying proportionality to that. And there's also a requirement to apply proportionality to the committees and how those operate. In paragraph 7, you've got the before and after, as it were, of the proportionality calculations. So without going into the detail, I'll just mention that councillors there is an appendix to the published report that has got some councillor names in there in terms of the changes that were to be made. However, that has been updated, so councillors should have another appendix on their desk, which has got the detail, further detail. So that appendix is replacing the one that's published. So if members can just indicate that they have got those, brilliant, thank you. So in terms of the report, what the report recommendation is asking for is that that council, that the review of political proportionality be agreed. So that I refer to the appendix that's on your desk, or that full council approve the disapplication of political proportionality for one or more committees, alternative arrangements as laid out in the report, subject to no member voting against it, and that the nomination set out in Appendix 2 to the report be agreed, such appointments to be duly made. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Francis. So I seek a motion from the floor and advise that the approval of any such motion would negate the ability to consider the alternative in regard to proportionality or its disapplication. Councillor Blake.
Chair, I'd like to move proposal 2 and 3, the recommendations, so that we vote on a potential suspension of proportion. This is 2 and, is that correct? 2 and 4. 2 and 4. Okay, do apologise. 2 and 4 to suspend proportionality in some instances, primarily to facilitate the chairs of those committees remaining on those, and also to make sure that these committees are fully attended. To that end, I have produced a following discussions with group leaders, a list, a completed list, which isn't circulated across the whole council chamber, which if you wish, we could have a brief adjournment to view as group leaders should you require.
Absolutely. Have you got a second to Councillor Blake?
I'll second that, Chair. I'll be very brief, Claire. Thank you. Just want to thank Councillor Blake for bringing this on. We have had some meetings amongst group leaders. We just, if this is helpful to the council, that the Alliance Group are fully in favour of the proposals, and we will support them without any further discussion if that's so deemed. Over to you, Claire.
I would just like to see the list, because I'm not a group leader. I'm little Billy no mates, so I'd like to see it, please.
Chair, can I just clarify to members what is happening? Because we have a motion that is looking for appointments to a non-proportional council, as long as council there is no dissenter to that can be done. So in terms of so it means that some committees, 3 committees, won't necessarily be proportional because of need, really. So what I suggest, as members don't have a list in front of them, it might be an idea, as Councillor Blake said, for a short adjournment so that there can be a discussion outside the meeting about how those lists are populated. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Chair, we do make things ever so complicated here, don't we? So could we just have clarity what committees we are talking about? Because my understanding is we are talking about Audit Committee, Licensing Committee, and the Pensions Committee. If that is the only committees that we're talking about, can we just all go to the vote and agree that disproportionality, because everybody in this room understands why those 3 committees need to have disproportionality applied to it. And we all understand that if anybody votes against that, it won't happen. Doesn't need really an adjournment, does it? Not this early. Does it?
Councillor Blake, you're the mover.
That's absolutely fine. It's my understanding that might be required, but if Councillor Mosdale's going to play ball, I'm quite happy to play ball too.
Councillor Blake, it depends on the size of the ball and what the ball looks like. Okay, but at the moment, I'm playing with it.
Francis is just going to have a quick run through the list. Councillor Blake, we'll go to the vote on your motion. All in favour? Anyone against? No. Any abstentions? Oh, great.
All right, thank you. Councillors, in terms of, if we can go to your Audit and Governance Committee, which is the first one that we're dealing with. The Conservative group had 2 members and they are giving up 1 member and the, it's got 2. They've got 2. All right, sorry, apologies. The Conservatives had 3 members. They're giving up 1, so they'll have 2. And the Empowering Islanders will gain 1 in that committee. Is that? Yes. Yeah. All right, councillors, now to the licensing committee. The non-aligned councillors had 2 seats and they're giving 1 up, and the Conservative group maintain their 4. So that works out in terms of that. So to the Pensions Committee, the non-aligned councillors are giving up their 1 seat and the Conservative group gain 1. Yeah. Yeah. So that's those. Is that right, Councillor Drake? Yeah. So maintaining the 3. So I think those are the changes in terms of the committees that are non-proportionate. And then in terms of the other placements, rather than going through the detail of it, because I know councillors, they'll be published in the minutes, and you've got the paper in front of you, unless councillors want me to go through the names. No, thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Members, all in favour of those proposals? Thank you. Anyone against? Don't do that. Any abstentions? Thank you. Carried. Just allow Francis a couple of seconds to get settled with his paperwork here. Constitutional changes. Again, Senior Governance Advisor to introduce the report. Francis.
Thank you, Chair. This report is looking for minor changes to the Constitution pending a larger whole-scale review of the Constitution. These are just minor changes. There are a couple of changes that are being recommended. One, attached to the report, councillors will see what's called a map of functions of new service committees. So basically what this map is where the services sit under the committees. A lot of this is about rationalisation because as members will recall, I mean, we've had a massive move to the committee system and we're now just rationalising where the services sit under the most logical committees. The changes aren't massive, they're minor, but that mapping is attached at Appendix 1. So that's the first change. Yeah, it's page 39 of your papers, councillors. And then the second one is to deal with an anomaly, really, because in terms of appointments to deputy chief officers, it's not clear where the decision making for those appointments lie at the moment. The intention, from our understanding, was that this was to be the responsibility of the committee. So the change we're seeking is just to rationalise that and just to clarify some of the ambiguities pending a full constitutional review. So I don't intend going into any more detail unless members want that, Chair. And there are 2 recommendations for those 2 changes proposed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I believe Councillor Spink is to put the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd formally please put the motion in the form of the recommendations on page 33.
Thank you, Councillor Spink. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Luciani? You just wanted to say something. We need a seconder first. Councillor Jarman, thank you. Councillor Luciani.
On page 39, I just want to make it clear under the committee that I'm the chair of, it says coroner. Can we make that very specific? It's the coroner's service, not the coroner themselves. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you. Right, yes, open to the floor if anybody wishes to make any comments on this. Oh, it is an interesting one. It's lively. Councillor Spink, you're right to reply, or we can go straight to the vote.
I'm happy, Chair, to go straight to the vote.
I like the cut of your jib. All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Carried. Thank you, Councillor Spink. Okay, we come to agenda item 6, report of a chief executive, and we're talking governance. And just a couple of little points ahead of this. Mr. Penn's report is hard-hitting for many reasons, and I thank members and officers for acknowledging its content. It's there. We've all seen it. We must now act. I expect this to be debated this evening, but I would ask for professional and sensitive reasons the focus of debate remain around the recommendations set out on pages 43 and 44 of the agenda. There is due process and the need to protect individual employees. So please, let's focus, if we can, on the recommendations presented. In that regard, I ask all members to conduct any debates with restraint, treating it as a very sensitive matter, exercising a great degree of integrity as we proceed. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't intend to say an awful lot on this because the report is with members and members have seen this in advance of its publication and have had the opportunity to have a conversation with Mr. Penn. The report presents the findings of the independent review into our governance arrangements. It highlights areas for improvement and sets out clear recommendations to strengthen our culture, relationships and a route to implementing those recommendations. And I'll leave it to you, Chair, to seek a motion from the floor.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the Chief Exec for presenting this. I'd like to propose what's been set out and that the report and recommendations set out in Appendix 1 are noted and supported, and I'm looking for a seconder.
Councillor Blake, thank you. So that is now on the floor if anybody wishes to. Absolutely. That's on the floor. Councillor Blake, as a seconder, you are entitled to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the opportunity now. I think the first thing that needs to be pointed out is that the dysfunctionality or dysfunctional can only be used with certain aspects of this council, and it's not that this entire council is not dysfunctional. I think that's come out of the report quite clearly, and I'd like to put some attention onto some of the recommendations that come out of that, and that's where we have to focus ourselves. Some of the recommendations that are coming forward tonight are pretty simple to put in, one would say, and I think we need to act on as many of them as quickly as possible. So I entirely endorse the 5 that we're putting forward tonight to be put forward to start being enacted immediately, and indeed they already have in terms of practice. I also endorse entirely the establishment of a standards committee. I think that will be coming down the line, but I think that's entirely needed and perhaps could have abated some of the situations that we've faced. I think we also need to make sure we draw attention to some of the things that aren't quite alluded to fully in the report, that are things around highlighting situations that have been, some situations have been outlined in the report as being a breakdown in officer and councillor communications. And I think it's key to say that that isn't the case in all circumstances. A lot of severe majority of this chamber would have very good, what they would say, relationships with officers. I think that sometimes there are tensions that make its way into public, which the members of the public do see, and that isn't how we should be carrying ourselves out as council. However, I do think there are some circumstances that have an accumulative effect that affect officer and member behaviour, and that needs to be addressed. So to that, Chair, I'd like to second this motion, because I think it does, this report, because it does highlight some very well needed things for us as a council to enact.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. Thank you, Ed. Opening it up to the floor for any further comments. Councillor Spink, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. I only have a couple of comments, if I may, please, and that's this. I think that it would help, I think, to restore trust between officers and some, and I include myself in that, members of this council, if the training programme were to be in at least part combined, so that there's not a separate training programme for officers and a separate training programme for councillors. I think that would lead to an understanding of each independent role, and I think it would also I think, lead to to minimise what has happened, I think, of a feeling of, amongst some of us, of a feeling of them and us. So at the moment, they're set out really as separate recommendations, which tends to imply that they would be held separately. And it may be that some have to be, but I think in the main, it should be held together. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. That's a very thoughtful consideration. I think that must be able to be facilitated. Has to be. Councillor Jones-Evans. Julie.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank everyone for contributing to the report. You know, the interviews that went on before it was written, and thank you to Mr. Penn and our launching officer for all the work they've done in preparing it and briefing us last week, going through it. It was very helpful. It was also very sobering. I think that we as individuals can only alter our own behaviour when we talk about the behaviour. I can't alter my colleague next to me's behaviour, how he responds to what is said or done. We're all responsible for our own behaviour. That's the control we have as individuals. No one makes us do anything. It's how we respond and reflect on it. So this one, each one of us has a responsibility about our own behaviour. Each one of us have to abide by the code of conduct, which is very, very clear on how we should behave with others, only our colleagues. And actually, I believe that our officers are our colleagues as well, and they deserve our respect. They're highly trained, highly experienced. And although it's possible to disagree and challenge, as we do, you know, that's our job. But you can do that respectfully. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to call people names, cast aspersions on their qualities or their knowledge. It's just not necessary. So I really do take the code of conduct very, very seriously. And I think a refresher course, that will be really helpful for everybody. And giving the idea of the training, something I picked up from the LGA recently, that new members especially, you know, and we've all been here in our 5th year now, aren't we? So we're not exactly new members, but it is worth repeating. You know, you have your induction. It's quite a lot to take on board. I mean, this is a unitary authority. It's a lot to understand. But it was recommended that the training is then repeat again 6 months later, once you've bedded in and got an idea of how things work. So I'm looking forward to seeing a training programme coming forward. I mean, back in the day, I was chair of the Member Development Board, who remembers that. There we go. And it was very helpful. Unfortunately, it was one of the things that went by the by about 2010, I think, when we first having the severe cuts that we received from the government at the time. So yes, training, yes, look at the code of conduct, understand that is you, we are the corporate body, we are the council, and what we do is picked up by our residents and as received by government.
Thank you, Councillor Jones-Evans. Councillor Stevens, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to start by saying it takes courage to invite an independent view on an organisation. I think that the Isle of Wight Council showed some courage. We knew that things weren't right. I think it was mentioned away from the council chamber quite a bit amongst members across the chamber and amongst officers. We knew there were problems. This was the starting point to get things fixed. I'm not a believer in writing out training programs when we can employ people who are best suited to know what is important within their remit to actually take forward for members to get a grasp of. So what I would say is that any program of training should follow an induction program and make sure that we get, as I did when I first came into the Isle of Wight Council, a good grounding of what the council is, what services it controls and operates, and making sure that we understand what the Isle of Wight Council is from a town or parish council, and indeed other entities out there providing services. So if we can get that right, and then we can get some step training through the council membership experience, we should actually come onto a relative way, a good way of working. I would just like to say that I don't believe in officers sitting down alongside me to learn what I'm learning, because as I'm sat here as a member, I expect the officers to have that degree of experience, talent, and know-how to take me through the elements that we're being lectured in and being taught through. And I look at our officers as professionals who understand the situation and try to put us on the right road. It's up to us to look at things, evaluate, and take the right road. By all means, question it. But at the end of the day, it's the reputation of this authority, it's the reputation of fellow members, as well as our own selves letting ourselves down. We need to make sure that what we do is understanding, responsible, respectful, and actually all in good heart and in good part. As you said earlier, Chair, you came into the council, as we all did, to make a difference, to make a positive difference to our district. No one comes into council to fail. That includes members and officers. We all come in here to try and do our best, and so we should. And all I'm going to say is that let's carry on working together and drive things forward in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Churchman, Vanessa.
Thank you, Chair. I was elected to represent my councillors. I wasn't elected to run the council. We provide the strategy. The officers basically carry it out within regulated statutes. However, I have become a jack of all trades, but a master of none. If I do not have an answer for a constituent, I hopefully expect to go to the relevant officer to get an answer. And that is the way I treat people. But I do like to talk to officers, because if there are too many emails, things get lost. When you talk to somebody face to face, you look them in the eye, then they have a better chance of explaining to you exactly what they mean. There's nothing else to interfere. And I do feel at the moment we lack that facility. One thing I would agree, Councillor Spink, you said right at the beginning about training. I'm a little suspect about training. If you look at the range that the council and how many of the officers they have, we'd spend all day, all night training. However, what I did find useful recently, there was an online Teams meeting on procurement, and I thought that was absolutely brilliant, because officers were there, councillors were there, and I felt at the end of it, I really understood what it was all about. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Churchman. Councillor Quigley, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's a very good report, and I don't think anyone in this room would argue with that. I think the important thing to bear in mind is what Mr. Penn has reported on is what the island sees. This isn't just Mr. Penn seeing what he saw. I think it highlights that a minority can have a disproportionate effect, and I think our responsibility, the rest of us, or rest of the chamber and elsewhere, need to help call it out. I think that's quite an important part of the report, is that none of us calling it out. I think we need to do that to support you, Chair. And I think we owe it to ourselves, but more importantly to the island, to do better.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Councillor Quigley. Councillor Lilley, Michael.
Thank you, and I would like to thank Mr. Penn for a very candid and pragmatic report. I particularly want to focus on 6.16 on page 28, which is about becoming a councillor. For me, we have a responsibility to encourage the next generation of councillors to actually represent our communities. And unfortunately, some of the behaviour in the past has discouraged people. When I talk to people, they said, I don't want to actually go onto that council because I'm worried about my own mental health. And as a mental health champion, people feel if I'm going to be talked in the way that sometimes people are talked to, the way that people are personally attacked, why would I do that? Why would I come forward? And I think is a lot of younger people, there's a lot of people from diversity, there is women who particularly would feel extremely nervous about coming into this chamber. And we need to me, 6.16 is we as a council need to build trust in our communities and to get the next generation of councillors that is wider representative than we are currently, and are able to have the relationships which this report says. So we need to, in this last period of the term, when we come to the election, be making this place a better place for the future generation of councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Councillor Bacon, Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I think it's pretty much all been said. I was most interested when you opened the report up to the room. There was a pause and a silence. And I think that's because, and people were slow to raise their hands, which is somewhat unusual here, but I think that's because we know this report is right and that we need to improve. And I think those who've spoken have said that, and there's not a lot to add. But thanks to Mr. Penn, we've got a path. We've been given a way to improve, achieve that improvement. And I'm going to suggest we should just start going down that path. And the first step to that is to vote on these recommendations. And I'm going to suggest that we move to the vote, Chair.
I'm quite happy to do that, but I would like to hear Councillor Mosdell, Councillor Garrett and Councillor Price. Yeah, I'd like to hear that. And that is you next, Claire. Councillor Mosdell.
I am quite happy to move to the vote, but I think we do need to take into account anybody who reads the below the line. So when this report came out, most of the comments online were no surprise here. I think we're listening about training and stuff like that, but actually what we've all got, the underlining that came out of here is lots of actions in this chamber and towards officers, and the atmosphere is people haven't been behaving like decent people, and behaviour that you wouldn't get away with in a workplace. You know, you would have been hauled over the coals and you wouldn't have a job anymore. So why has that been allowed to happen? Because you're an elected councillor to represent over 3,000 people. To me, that seems completely askewed. So the one thing I will ask from everybody is, before you send that email, before you make that comment, take a breath, take reflection and think, am I acting like a decent human being? And if it's no, don't send it and don't say it. That's all I ask. And you shouldn't need to have training to tell you how to be a decent human being and how to treat others with respect. Thank you.
That actually is a fine comment to finish on. Councillor Price, Councillor Garrett, are you happy to move to the vote, or would you like to be heard?
If I may, Chair.
Absolutely, Andrew, you follow.
I think it follows exactly what Councillor Bosdell said. The one recommendation we don't have here is an apology. Basically, by passing this tonight, we are saying sorry to our colleagues, members, officers, but we are most of all saying sorry to the public that we serve, because Councillor Bosdell is quite right. The comments have been unsurprised, and they should be surprised that there's bad behaviour, because it shouldn't exist. So I personally feel very sorry that we've got to this. I will, whenever I meet a constituent, if they raise it with me, I will attempt to model the right behaviour for all of us, and I'm sure all of us will attempt to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. It was worth waiting for. I mean that sincerely. Councillor Price, Matthew.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be very brief. I was once the youngest person in this chamber, I believe that, if you may. And I certainly do agree with what Councillor Bacon said, which is that this report is right. You know, I've sat through some awful situations. Perhaps I should have been the one that stood up and said, let's stop this behaviour. But, you know, I often find my role at full council is an observer. I conduct myself perhaps in a different way to some councillors. I do it quietly behind the scenes. I don't go shouting off about anything either, you know, in the public arena. I just get on and do what I think I was elected to do. And I try to do that in the best way I can. And most of that is done with the relationships that I have with other councillors in this room, other councillors on town and parish councils, but most importantly, the staff here and the members of my community that I represent. You you know, we've all got different ways of doing it. But even at my most agitated state, when I've either been here frustrated because I haven't liked the way things are going, or when I haven't liked an answer from an officer or a member of staff, I've even hardly been rude. I've always been as respectful as I can. And I just think, you know, I welcome training and I'll attend it. I don't think I need training in how to respect and be, let's say, behave appropriately with others. I think it should come naturally, really. You know, I just would like to thank Mr. Penn for this report and for highlighting the issues. And I think everyone here tonight recognises that there is a problem and that perhaps from now onwards we can do things differently. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Before I return to the leader for a right of reply, I'd actually like to ask Mr. Penn for any comments from himself and thank him on behalf of Isle of Wight Council, like many have this evening, for holding up a mirror to us all. And it is a mirror that we can take reflection of and make improvements in. Mr. Penn.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to say a few words about the review I carried out of governance on the island and the report that's at Appendix 1 of item 6A this evening. I really do hope that my review and the report I produced has provided the Council with an opportunity for a much needed reset, which was a word that's been used quite a few times in my conversations with members. I have to say that I issued my report with some trepidation because I did anticipate it might put people's backs up a bit. But actually, I've been very relieved and to be honest, somewhat humbled at the way my report's been received by members of the council. And I've read their various statements in the local media with a genuine appreciation of the way, the open and honest way in which councillors have responded to the report and acknowledged the shortcomings in the way the council's operated in the past and the enthusiasm for change and improvement. I did anticipate much more resistance to my findings. And I just want to take this opportunity to restate and underline my conclusion that the real problem for the council hasn't been the behaviour of some members, sometimes which has been inappropriate and perceived in the public and which can be damaging to the reputation of the council. Obviously, that's an issue that does need to be dealt with when it happens, and some of the recommendations are about that. The real problem from my perspective is the failure of both officers and members of the council to respect the complementary roles they play. We're all in this together. You know, it's not us and them. It's that complementary role played by officers of the council and members of the council working together effectively and cooperatively to best meet the needs of the island and the residents. I really hope that my report and the recommendations that have flown from it does provide that opportunity for that reset that people talk about, and that the council in future operates as an effective and efficient organisation that focuses on the delivery of vital services for residents of the island, with members and officers working together with mutual respect, mutual trust and mutual support. I hope that I've made a small contribution to that improvement, which I think is really going to change the way this organisation operates in the future. So thank you, Chair, and thank you to everyone who participated in my review. I really enjoyed my time working with people here. I found both officers and members very open, very honest, and prepared to hear and to talk about the changes that are necessary. So thank you for that. It's made my work that much easier. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. And again, thank you for the report. Almost feels like a round of applause is in order, but anyway, the right of reply is to the mover, which is Councillor Jordan. Phil.
Thank you, Chair. So as Councillor Bacon said, it's been said, thank you, Richard, for firstly coming tonight, accepting the invite and coming along and giving a little insight into his thoughts on the report. I want to thank Councillor Blake for seconding the proposal, but it's significant that Councillor Blake, along with myself representing the Alliance group, as I do, and Councillor Blake with his Conservative group, and Councillor Garrett for the Liberal Democratic group, came together very quickly and agreed and worked upon a public statement that we put out. I think it's significant that we managed to do that. I appreciate Councillor Garrett's input and Councillor Blake. And it shouldn't be underestimated the significance that we managed to do that. It's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call on a couple of things. It's mentioned in the report on local government reorganisation. We are hoping beyond hope. We spoke earlier about the consultation out now that the government will recognise this island as the unique unitary authority that we see it as, and we want it to continue as. What we don't want is to give government any excuse, any reason to think that we would be better off merged with an island, with a mainland authority. Let's not have that. So it's a wake-up call to us to say to government, we recognise the shortcomings of this council and we are going to do something about it immediately, and where it takes further action, to take that further action. But we'll go further. The recommendations are extensive. There are 12 of them. We'll go further. It's not just the recommendations today that we need to address. It is to improve this council going forward. Some of the things that Councillor Stevens spoke about, that we were elected because we thought we could make a difference. Well, let's make a difference to this council, because when this council is operating, the services we deliver will operate better, and our community and residents will see that and experience that. And finally, I would just say, I can't remember who it was Councillor Blake. The word dysfunctional is at risk of being disproportionate. There is a dysfunctionality. We recognise it. It is not this entire council. It never has been. There are areas of dysfunctionality, but there are vast areas of functionality also. And we have to keep that in mind, that we don't become disproportionate in that. So, Chair, it's been proposed, it's been seconded. We've had reasonable, sensible debate tonight and comments, and I thank all the councillors for that. Let's look forward to working together and to make this council operate better by the things that have been mentioned in the report and the words that have been spoken about: respect for each other and respect for our officers, respect for the system that we operate in. And I'll ask you to move to the vote now, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jordan. We will move to the vote. All those in favour, please raise. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Absolutely well and truly carried. Thank you, Mr. Penn, and thank you, members. Rather embarrassingly, the antibiotics cause me to drink quite a lot of water at the moment, and I need a 1 minute, 2 minute comfort break. So have a quick 2 minutes. We will have a better comfort break later, but I really do need to go that way. So talk amongst yourselves for 5 minutes. Members, when we're ready, if you take your seats. You joined us, Carol. When did you get? Were you getting on a by-election? Agenda item 7, reports of the Policy, Finance and Resources Committee. This is the Island Planning Strategy update. I'd just like to know really before we head into this, what is presented tonight is a binary choice. We move forward to the next stage or we do not. I think it's important to impress on members that this is a key decision for Isle of Wight Council. I won't speak any more on that. I will hand over to the Chair of Policy, Finance and Resources Committee, Councillor Jordan. Phil.
Chair, I'm just proposing the island planning strategy and look for a seconder. The strategy update.
Councillor Ward. Right, let's go straight to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Councillor Drew, okay. Carried. I'm stunned. Thank you, members. Part 2 of this is the proposed leases of Isle of Wight property. And again, Councillor Jordan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I will just a little explanation. When we set the asset disposal policy, set with good intention by this council for good reason, there are oversights and shortcomings in that policy. Tonight is just a set of proposed leases for renewal as of November 2025, and they're listed. But I would just say to you before I move and ask for a seconder that we need to review the policy to deal with leases generally. It cannot have been the intent of this council when we spoke about the disposal of our land for affordable housing and social housing, that captured in the very moment the renewal of leases of buildings. It just couldn't have been our intention. But unfortunately, leases over 7 years that are come up for renewal have to go through the asset disposal policy process, and that was not what our intention was. So we need to address it. Tonight, there are some of those immediate leases that we need to address and approve. But as I said, we should come back to at a later date, a review of the policy generally, so that our teams in the Isle of Wight Council can get on with their day-to-day work of renewing leases as we have to do. Thank you. I'm looking for a seconder.
Councillor Quirk, sorry.
Thank you. I moved the original motion that's set this in play. And the reason for that was because of the lack of clarity on what was actually happening in terms of property disposals. But actually renewal of leases wasn't part of the intention. I am quite happy that this is outside of what was intended by the original motion, I think we can look at how that can be handled, because this doesn't have to be interpreted the way that officers are saying every single one has to come at the time that it's being disposed of. You could actually look at properties and we could approve a whole range of properties that are appropriate for a type of disposal. So I think this is an action where the Penn report actually applies. That is how you interpret some of the things, and that discussion between officers and members, and it all happened in the first place because that wasn't that discussion across the chamber. It was a very small group who were making all of those decisions. But this wasn't the intention. I support releasing it in terms of these particular items, and I'm a move that we go straight to the vote, as well as second it.
Councillor Jones-Evans, you did have your hand up to speak, and if any members wish to.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I would like to speak. I spoke against this policy when it came in a few months ago, because I could see that it was not going to deliver one brick of affordable housing. This to me is actually an example of the trust that we spoke about earlier. I think members can be very clear about what they want to achieve, but then actually taking and writing the policy themselves and maybe not heeding advice. If you recall, that paper we had was full of risks, written risks in that paper. So I think we should reflect on that this is where this has landed us. And we have professional staff, highly qualified, educated, who do this day in, day out, and we should trust them to be able to deliver the policies that we need to be able to get more housing, because that's what we want to do at the moment. What we did not want to do is to take up people's time, and a lot of expensive time, bringing individual leases to full council. I mean, it's just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. What I would like to see, however, going forward, if we may, is to have more investment into our property team. I think, well, teams across the council are very stretched, but I know from being contacted by people outside the council who wish to have a lease, want to invest on the island, and we just need more bodies to do the work. So that would be my plea for this. My other plea is, please, can we have a different council? Can we please not be in this embarrassing, expensive situation where we are agreeing leases for a mugger, for instance, in full council? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones-Evans. Chris, sorry, I didn't thank you for seconding. Thank you on that. Anybody else wish to make a comment? Councillor Spink, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just would like to ask a question or two about on page 139 at 33, which is about the Blackberry Lane preschool. What is going to be that's one of the only one which has been assessed as being suitable for affordable housing, in fact, and social housing. The report, it's just a small point, but the report actually says that none of these have been found to be suitable for affordable housing. That's simply inaccurate. But I'd just like to know what the Blackberry preschool, what its function under the new lease is going to be in a little detail, because it's not simply, as I understand it, a nursery school. I understand that it's going to involve SEND pupils, and that's going to be the main purpose. I just wanted to do some clarification initially, please, and then I may have a supplementary.
Councillor Spink, thank you. I'll refer that to the mover, Councillor Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. Just to say, of course, we're asking tonight to recommend that. We need some more detail on that. The property team are working on that at the moment. So the detail you want, we will have to provide in written form as soon as possible after this meeting, or by the end of the week if staff are here. Yeah.
So I would only, by way of a supplementary, it's a little, I mean, that is one of the sites that has been found to be suitable for affordable housing. It's a little much, if I may say so, to ask members of the council to vote that it be used for another purpose when you're not able, or the council's not able, to tell us what the intended use is. I mean, we do need to know a little bit rather than just vote en bloc, in my suggestion.
I think, Councillor Spink, it's at 23 on page 138. I'll read it out for so there's no doubt that the Blackberry Lane Preschool, which is adjacent to the former Cowes Primary School, is occupying the site building under a licence granted by the governors of the former primary school. The preschool is now seeking a lease from the council to remain in occupation. I won't read the rest of it, but that's the point of the leases, that where leases are being asked to be renewed, this is the very point of what we're asking you to do tonight, is that we approve the leases to be renewed, because it's what's required. It's not required that they're considered for affordable housing. That's the point.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Councillor Jarman, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. So this is indeed noise within the system. The word mugger, and we should not be considering noise at this point. What we should be doing is sitting here considering the allocation of council-owned land for the development of social rent housing. And to my knowledge, that is not what is happening. We have not had land owned by the council brought forward, having been evaluated and proposed for social rent housing. And the opening paragraphs in the executive summary make it very clear that the policy was about bringing forward social rent housing, which is in effect what this island is desperately short of and desperately needs. So the question I have is, when will we have proposals brought for us for the allocation of council-owned land for the deployment of social rent housing? Thank you.
If I may respond, that's not the issue we're discussing. We are discussing the issue of renewing leases, not the disposal of land.
Absolutely, we are discussing that. So on that basis, we will move to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendations, please. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you, carried. Okay, just before we move on to agenda item 9, it is on the agenda, the exclusion of public and press. I would like to avoid that, as we have done before. This item affects thousands of individuals, and we must remain mindful of that. In the interest of transparency and openness, we need to keep it in the public domain. The legal advice is very clear, though, that if discussion strays into the content, which is marked pink in the appendices, Francis will give me a nudge, and we'll have to pass a resolution to enter private session and remove public and press from the meeting. That's a nuclear option, and as I've said before, I would ask members to remain focused and mindful of the importance of what is being discussed this evening, and we can avoid that. So, agenda item number 9 is a report of the Director of Finance and Chair of the Isle of Wight Pension Fund Committee, Cllr Jarman. Chris. Oh, sorry. I do apologise.
Chair, but I'm not proposing the paper.
Sorry, Cllr Jarman. Mr. Ward, I do apologise. Are you introducing us? My apologies.
Very happy to, Chairman. Okay, first of all, members, thank you for all of those that attended the all-member briefing on this, and thank you also for those of you that maybe didn't attend the briefing, but actually watched the recording of the presentation. So hopefully you've been fairly well informed about the issue, but I'll just recap some of that in brief for you. So first of all, you'll recall that your previous consideration of this matter was on the 17th of September at the council meeting. At that point, you resolved not to make a decision in principle in relation to joining an alternative pool partner. Since that point, obviously, we've reflected the council's decision back to central government, but government have invited the council to reconsider the opportunity to make a decision, particularly given some of the risks that may be involved to the council in the event that no positive decision is taken. So just to recap, their preference, of course, as I mentioned in that presentation, is that locally managed pension scheme arrangements should be locally determined. So the key risks really of not taking a decision are, first and foremost, for me at least, is that that taking a no in principle decision is regarded as a failure in effective decision making. Now, if it is regarded as such, then within the pensions bill at the moment, which obviously isn't legislation at this stage, but in terms of all of its progression, this area around governance is not, as I understand it, is not being disputed. But there is the opportunity of what's described as a governance review. As part of that governance review, when they review the effectiveness of the decision making of the pension fund itself, they may determine that by not taking decisions, that is a kind of failure of effective decision making, and they could move to implement a governance review, which could result in compulsory merger. So in that sense, it's an existential threat to the continuation of the Isle of Wight Pension Fund as an administering authority. That's the key thing, I think, that certainly government have pointed out to us. That, of course, would mean losing influence on investment strategy for the Isle of Wight Pension Fund, and also losing influence about local investment if there's any investments within the local area from the pension fund itself. There's also the potential for, well, I think there's more than the potential. There is the expectation of avoidable additional costs being borne by the Isle of Wight Pension Fund if no decision is taken. And having said that, there's also the problems associated with in not taking a decision and leaving that decision to government. That will lead to delay. Delay would lead the Isle of Wight pension funders to having no say in influencing its participation in a new pooling arrangement, because there will be a decision that will be taken by government for this pension fund to go into an alternative pooling arrangement. But in the meantime, where there's that position of no decision, the Isle of Wight Pension Fund is not able to participate in meaningful conversation around negotiations of what the arrangements with the new pooling partner would be. It's absolutely appreciated that leaving access the current pool provider or the process that has led to this point is not the preferred route for the Isle of Wight Pension Fund or indeed for the Isle of Wight Council. But the position is as it is, and we are advised that we ought to take a decision in principle for the reasons that I've set out. In terms of the pool partner, central pool is the clear recommendation to the council. That's the recommendation of all of the professional advisors that have been involved in the evaluation of the different pool partner options. And that's been evaluated across 10 key assessment criteria. So it's been a thorough due diligence exercise, and a number of, well, actually all of our advisors have come to the same conclusion, that the central pool is the best fit for the Isle of Wight Pension Fund. One final thing to alert you to is that there obviously has been some concern about entering into it's a decision in principle, entering into a decision in principle without absolutely all of the information that you would like to have in order to make that informed decision. This is a decision in principle. There's sufficient information for you to make a decision in principle. There will be a final decision that comes back to you to enter into a shareholder agreement. That's when further due diligence information will be available. If at that point in time you don't feel content that this is the right pool partner for the Isle of Wight Council, you have the opportunity at that time to obviously withdraw from the decision that you make today. So this is not the end of the story in terms of decision making. You will be furnished with further information, but we obviously have to go through a due diligence process in order to get to that final decision point. That's all I'd like to say by way of introduction, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's greatly appreciated. So now turning to the chair of the Isle of Wight Pension Fund Committee, Cllr Jarman, to introduce his element of the report and put the motion. Chris.
It's not my report, Chair, but I'm happy to speak at this point if you'd like me to.
Well, put it forward the motion.
No, I've no motion to put forward, Chair, and it's not my report, but I'm happy to speak at this time if you like.
Excuse me just 1 second, Cllr Jarman. Right, I was told that it was going to be you moving it to the floor, Cllr Jarman, but never mind. Leader, would you move the motion so we can get it on the floor for debate?
Chair, happy to do that. I'll move the motion and look for a seconder.
Cllr Lilley, thank you. Would anybody like to speak either the move or the seconder starting off? Cllr Jarman, I believe you did wish to speak on this.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to speak initially on the issue of an individual pool. What I would like to address is the fact that you quite rightly pointed out on the 17th of September, this full council addressed this. There are no material changes to this matter. It was, we understand, on the basis of monitoring officer representation to yourself that you agreed it would come back here. And thank you for your email confirming that today. We were informed by Francis Fernandez here that on the basis it had been brought back to full council, it should come back before the pension fund committee themselves, which it did. There was quite a debate at that committee, and the decision was taken eventually to refer it back to this full council, and we are here today. But the matter has already been heard by this full council and decided upon. And so we are tasked today with deciding upon the same matter and the same recommendations, which seems quite extraordinary. The only additional debate which was brought up on this at the Pension Fund Committee, and I'll summarise it because it was quite extensive, was recognising that there was no new material, but that we were effectively faced with, I think it started off as an example of a stick to the head and then became a gun to the head situation, where if we do not take this course of action, then the government will exercise draconian action against us as a result. So the matter is back today, and I would welcome some further explanation as to why we are tasked with voting on the same matter only 2 months after we have voted on it, when, as far as I can see, there is no new material to add to that debate. other than the fact this evening that there are a number of persons unable to make the meeting this evening who were able to make the earlier one and will therefore not be able to represent themselves in the same way they were on the 17th of September.
Thank you, Councillor Jarman. Yeah, it came from a direct request from Steve Harrison. We looked at it and I did this under Procedure Rule 18, which in the Chair's opinion, the matter is urgent or important for requiring further consideration because a decision hadn't been made. And that was it. Mr. Fernandez, you might be able to expand on that.
Thank you, Chair. Members will know this rule. It's basically the 6-month rule. I mean, full council can reconsider a decision whenever full council wants to reconsider a decision, assuming it can't be reversed. But what the Constitution has is what's called colloquially as a 6-month rule. And if a decision comes back to council within the 6 months, there are certain procedures that need to be followed. And Councillor Jarman is absolutely right. This did come before full council within that 6-month window in September. Now, I understand, Chair, that you have taken advice from the substantive monitoring officer. And if I can just outline what I think that advice is. Ultimately, it's for you, Chair, but Procedure Rule 18 allows the full council to reconsider a matter that it has considered within the last 6 months. But what the procedure rule says is that it says a motion or amendment to rescind a decision made at a meeting of council within the past 6 months cannot be moved unless, in the chair's opinion, the matter, there's a couple of bullet points, but it says, in the chair's opinion, the matter is urgent or important, requiring further consideration. And it's the same criteria for if a decision is rescinded. So basically, the issue is that the chair has got a wide discretion under this procedure to bring the decision, to allow the decision to be reconsidered. The chair's not making the decision. All he's doing is allowing council to reconsider it within the 6-month rule. So my understanding in terms of the urgency aspect of it, and the further information was more to do with government reaction and the fact that the Isle of Wight Council is the outlier in all of this and the only council within the area who has not actually joined the pool. So I think with those things in mind, the chair has made the decision. I will remind full council that the chair has a lot of discretionary powers. This is his meeting. There are constitutional powers in Article 14. This is his meeting under inherent jurisdiction, so he has got a lot of powers to make that decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fernandez. Any other comments from the floor from councillors? Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. Members will recall that you appointed me to the pension board earlier this year, and I've taken that role seriously. And at our pension board meeting of a date that I've now forgotten, but it was the 8th of October, we considered this matter, and it was a resolution of the pension board, and the pension board has a really important role in oversight of the work of the local pension fund committee. That the board strongly advised the pension fund committee to make a decision on joining a pool based on the available expertise and information. Consider that very carefully. It was a good discussion. The chair of the pension fund committee was there as well, explaining the position that the committee had taken at that time. Something has changed. What has changed is government has now given us a further indication that a decision should be made. Looking back to the minutes of when this was last considered, a position wasn't taken. It simply, the minutes showed that the recommendations fell. That, in my mind, is not a decision. A decision is either to say, definitely not, we're not doing any of this, and that is not recorded in the minutes of that meeting, or it is to make a decision as we have been strongly advised by officers to do, strongly advised by government to do, strongly advised by the pension board, of which I am a member. to do, and the pension board was unanimous in that view. So I understand the position that the chair of the pension fund committee is making, but I think it is important to understand that a decision is a very positive thing to do, even if it is in the negative. And what was resolved at the September meeting was not a decision. And therefore, we're not overturning something, we are just reconsidering the idea that we do make a decision. Hope I haven't tortured my argument too much on that, but it is extremely important that we make that decision.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Garrett, thank you. Councillor Lever, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. We are somewhat here again, and the risks of not deciding a route forward, as outlined by the papers of Mr. Ward, have never been clearer. So, to put it bluntly, government intervention looms. And if you're unhappy with their decision-making getting us to this point, how can you be prepared to roll the dice on further intervention? But I don't want the frustration with where we are today to sour any future relationship with our prospective pool. By all accounts, Central are an attractive prospect who appear collaborative and open to our input in shaping them, along with other member funds. So if we must go anywhere, the current evidence suggests they're a good fit. So I hope there are enough of us now to vote for this recommendation. But to those who still want no part in this, I get it. And whilst I would still plead with you to reconsider and vote for, if you cannot do that, at least abstain rather than voting this recommendation down again. I'm sure none of us want to risk giving those who put us in this situation any more power over our business than they already do. So let's move forward in principle together on a positive footing with the new pool.
Thank you, Councillor Lever. Councillor Blake, Ed.
Thank you, Chair. I disagree slightly with Councillor Garrett that we did make a conscious decision not to make a decision. And I think that was a decision. You know, we said we have not got enough information in front of us to make this decision. The government forcing upon us, we can't make a decision. And I do take umbrage with the government's wording through Chris Ward saying that this needs to be a local decision. Well, at no point would we have ever come to the conclusion that we need to change pools. The access pool that we're in was very good, and I think all can agree that whatever decision is made, it is a poor outcome in terms of performance compared to where we were in access. And I think that's we need to state that. This may appear petulant, but we are dealing with an extremely unreasonable request from government, and the fact that they've turned around and said that your local decision isn't good enough, go again, try again. That's them making it not a local decision, frankly. And I don't agree that reason is the reason that it's brought back before this committee. This chamber, we've made a decision. It might not have been to make an official recommended decision, but we did make a decision. So that is the reason why I've stood against this and repeatedly against this, because the government, through their ideological reasons alone, are forcing us to go into a situation that was doing quite well for us. In the last sort of 3 years, we've achieved over 60% of growth. We're going to go into two pools that have not achieved anywhere near that level of growth in their funding. So, yes, the people at Central might be lovely people, but they haven't been doing as well in their funding as the people in Access were. So to that end, I can't agree that this is a good thing. I will be abstaining against that because this motion, however, because again, we have not got the right decision we have made to make a reasonable decision. So I can't make a decision, therefore I'm abstaining.
Councillor Blake, thank you. Members, we've had a lovely discussion this evening on a myriad of topics. Let's keep the tone that we started.
Apologies, Chair.
Accepted. Thank you, Joe. Warren, Councillor Drew.
Thank you, Chair. I would agree with Councillor Lever. I think we need to make a determinative decision. I spoke against this last time. My reasons still stand. I mean, this clearly isn't, as it were, a realistic decision. We're being told to do something with a gun against our head. We've had a very comprehensive piece of work by officers. They have worked incredibly well, and we should pay testament to them. But essentially, this is a decision as to whether we go with one investment pool, which would, compared to where we are invested, lose approximately circa, and this is something not to necessarily be relied upon. And I say that as a caveat because I know officers are very keen to make sure it's merely indicative. But an investment pool where beneficiaries would have lost essentially 6 million year over year as compared to 11 million with the other pool. Now, clearly the investment case, of course, you would go with Central. You wouldn't possibly go with the 11 million loss. So this is something which is not particularly a choice. We have a fiduciary duty, absolutely, but that I would suggest is only exercised in a situation where we do have a meaningful choice. But, let's get real. This is the government saying, as to quote Mr. Wall, this is an existential threat to our ability to determine where pensions are invested, or not necessarily determine, but to have an influence on that. So we need to move forwards in some way. We're obviously all on pension committee, I think, very unhappy with the way in which this has been pushed down onto us. I mean, I would suggest as a workaround, and I think it reflects the fact that there's a lot of consternation in pension committee, that we find a way essentially of abstaining and let it go through by one vote. And if that is one vote, let it be Councillor Quigley, because quite frankly, he is, albeit at an arm's length direction, a representative of the government. And there is a real point here, which is ultimately, yes, that might be a 1% representation of what the total fund of the pension committee is, but compounded year over year, 10, 15, 20 years, that can make a substantial difference. We know the context of investment performance. A 7% year-on-year return would be good. You feature that against a context of inflation. It wouldn't take much for the markets to change and for us to be underfunded. Now, beneficiaries obviously will always get the same amounts, but ultimately any underfund will be made up by local council taxpayers. And so that's why pension committee is exercised upon this. For anyone who looks at the confidential documentation, you would see that Labour belabours the point, and this is not a political point. I mean, I've objected to measures that the Conservatives have brought in, but they belabour the point that it has to be a local investment. That is a large part of what is being put forward. That gives me concern. With your quick indulgence, Chair, I would suggest that perhaps you ask for the vote against this first, so that members have the confidence that they can all abstain, knowing that this will still go forwards because it will be carried potentially by Councillor Quigley. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Drew. No, I won't be asking for that. We need to send a powerful message that we as a council can make a decision that we believe is in the best interests of Islanders. Jonathan Bacon, Councillor Bacon.
Thank you, Chair. I think we're getting there. I was worried we were going to go down a rabbit hole a few moments ago, arguing when is a decision not a decision, but I think we've escaped that. I'm conscious of the fact we've got pink papers and we cannot refer to them as such. But I think if anyone is in doubt about the need to move on with this, make a decision and accept the recommendation, they should just reread, because I know everyone will have read this, but reread what is on page 200. It's one of the pink papers, so I'm not going to read it out. But if anyone hasn't looked at that, I would compel them to do so straight away. It makes the position clear. Crystal would be opaque by comparison, I'd suggest. And in reading that and going forward, I think also, as has been alluded to, I think we should bear in mind the discussion we were having earlier this evening and have regard to some of the things we were saying in regard to the report from Mr. Penn and the bigger picture that we are in at the moment. So, yeah, if you haven't had a look at it, look at page 200 and think on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bacon. Councillor Mosdell, Claire.
Well, I thought if I'm going to be bad, I've moved into the hot seat.
Right, you are, Councillor Mosdell.
So having read the PENS report, I've decided if I'm going to say anything naughty, I'm going to say respectfully first. So I would respectfully like to say that to make a decision is not to make a decision to make a decision is actually respectfully twaddle. And you can minute that. We have listened to the PEN report and we have listened to our Section 151 officer, who over the years I have a great amount of respect for. I cannot see him bringing a report to this and asking that we make an actual decision and lead us in the wrong direction. You know, he's incredibly well qualified. The things that I've seen with him balancing our own money and our funds to actually gets out of us some very difficult positions, you know, with his level of debt management and stuff like that. Sometimes I think my husband would quite like you mentioned, you know, keeping an eye on my bank accounts, but that's clearly not going to happen. I think to say that the government has a gun to our head, well, if they've got a gun to our head, there's a thing about guns, they damage you if they go off. So if you do think you've got a gun to your head, then make this decision. Yes, I have a huge respect for Councillor Drew, but I have to balance that out with the respect that I have for Councillor Ward and his years of experience, and he's bringing to this to, you know, ask us to move forward. So, and lastly, Councillor Lever, when you speak, you really do speak, don't you? With a lot of sense, and because you don't speak that often, it was good to listen, and I agree with that. I think we're making this overly political. I think that, you know, take the politics out of the room and stop firing those, you know, bullets at each other. What we've got to do is we are acting as councillors and looking after all the people who are part of this pension fund, and we need to take the politics out, leave it at the door. I know we're meant to be politicians. That's probably why I've decided not to be one and be non-aligned. And I'm going to take the good advice that I feel that I'm taking from our Section 151 officer. I'll move back to the good seat now, and I would always say respectfully, thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Councillor Lilley, Michael.
Well, I'd like to, not always in the past, been totally in agreement with Councillor Modsdale, but in this case, absolutely. I want to point out that we have a local pension board, and that board has representatives of the people this money is in a lot of cases, which is the people who've not only work for the Isle of Wight Council, but a range of other organisations whose total future as they get old is reliant on this pension. And they have representatives on that board, as well as we have representatives. And we have an independent chair who has been appointed to have incredible experience or knowledge. That board met on the 8th of October and has actually sent a message saying, in a sense, we need to take the advice of the Section 151 officer and the team and move ahead. And I don't think we should be sort of going against that, because that body is the quality control for the service. If they said something different, then we would need to listen to it. But they've said, let's get on to it. Can we move to the vote? Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Stewart was the last person to speak on this, and has a wealth of pension-related information. I think it would be beneficial for members to hear from him. Nick.
Thank you, Chair. I have a lot I could say, and I think probably at the last meeting you may vaguely remember that I was fairly passionate. I don't feel the need to do that today. Thanks to Mr. Penn's report, I feel very calm and respectful to everybody. So all I would say is, following Mr. Lilley, the pension committee met and it voted to recommend to full council that an in-principle decision is made to join the central pool and that this is confirmed to central government. I would like to support Councillor Lilley to going to a vote to follow that recommendation of the pension committee, which included, of course, Councillor Drew Councillor Blake, and chaired, of course, by Cllr Jarman.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. I'll refer this back to the, no, I don't need to. Should we just go to the vote? Just crack on. Okay, all in favour, please show. Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, members. Carried. We do have a comfort break scheduled for that, and we have been cracking on. If you want 5 minutes, let's do that, and then we'll reconvene. Okay, thank you, members. We move on to item 10 on the agenda, motions submitted under Procedure Rule 15 of the Council's Constitution by Cllr Jarman. Today, we had an agenda meeting and myself and the Vice Chair received some legal advice on which we are acting, and the motion will be removed from the agenda this evening under the powers of the Chair. I'll ask Mr. Francis to explain a bit more on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
And I would like to apologise, Councillor Jarman. It's most unfortunate, but
I'd be very happy to reply to you.
there won't be a discussion on this, but the legal advice is the legal advice and it will be disseminated. But Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In terms of the advice given, the statutory so it's not me, the statutory monitoring officer gave advice on this issue. And he has put that advice in writing. And I think if members want to see that advice, then I can't see, subject to checking with the monitoring officer, I can't see that there's any problem with sharing that advice with him. But basically, there are two issues. One is the substantive legal issue the monitoring officer has taken a view on. And the second thing is the procedural issue, which the chairman is acting on. So the substantive issue, and the monitoring officer starts by saying, my strong legal advice, and he's saying it's advice, he can't decide, is that the notice on motion should not be put to the vote of full council. So this is the statutory officer's advice. It's not me, it's the statutory officer. The point and the advice, the monitoring officer raises a couple of points in terms of the focus of the pensions committee and its role and the focus of council. So rather than, I mean, I can read that whole advice to members, but I mean, it's a long advice and I suggest that that is sent out to members, circulated to members. The second point is the procedural point, because having considered that advice, it's for the chair to decide what to do with that. Now, under 4.99, the chair may reject, so procedurally, the chair may reject any motion or notice which does not conform to these procedural rules, giving their reasons for any such rejection. And my understanding, Chair, is the reason is that you received strong advice from the monitoring officer. Now, the second point I would make to councillors is about chairman's powers. Because, I mean, ultimately, Chair, you've got extensive powers. This is your meeting, in essence. Now, under Article 14 of the Constitution, basically, what it says, if I can just read it out, Article 14.2.159, it says the ruling of the chair of the council, after taking advice from the monitoring officer, which is what you've done, or other officer nominated by the monitoring officers, as to the construction or application of this constitution, or as to any proceedings of the council, shall not be challenged in any meeting of the council. So ultimately, my understanding, Chair, is that you've had advice from the monitoring officer in writing, which we'll circulate. You formed a decision in terms of not allowing the item on the agenda.
With support of the Vice Chair.
Yeah, support of the Vice Chair. And I think that's the end of the matter, Chair. Thank you.
It is indeed. Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. We'll move on to item 11, which is from Cllr Lilley. Cllr Lilley, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I wish to put forward my motion. You've got the wording of the motion in front of you in the agenda. I'm speaking and presenting this motion, obviously as an Isle of Wight councillor, but as the Isle of Wight Council's mental health champion and also co-chair of the Isle of Wight Voluntary Sector Forum. Today, the 19th of November, is International Men's Day, which is part of Movember, which is a whole month internationally about men's health. This day focuses on the positive contributions of men and boys, as well as raising awareness of men's health and well-being. Men in the UK and on the island have a lower life expectancy than women and face significantly higher rates of serious health conditions and premature death. Men in England die nearly 4 years earlier than women. And on the island, we have particular high rates in cancer. Men are significantly die more than women. Cardiovascular disease, again, men significantly die early from this than women. Liver disease, and also respiratory disease. The other area is suicide. Men are four in 5 suicides are men. And that is the same case on the Isle of Wight. Suicide is the biggest killer of men under 50. Men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women and 4 times less likely to seek help. The local paper, the local reporter, put an article in the county press yesterday evening. In 2 hours, I got 3 emails saying thank you for raising this motion from families that have actually lost their sons in the last 6 months. And they said very similar things, that they were devastated, that the whole world was gone. One of the biggest things that they have to actually face is it's suspected suicide, because until the coroner makes a decision that it's suicide, it isn't suicide. And therefore families up to 3 or 4 years can actually wait for a decision. Can you imagine as a parent, right, how that would be? We, Isle of Wight Council, have a statutory duty to prevent suicide. It is our issue, and my motion is to remind us of our public health duty to actually make sure that lives are saved. We have an amazing local voluntary sector, a project such as Men Only Isle of Wight, that actually now has a Women Only Isle of Wight as well. A variety of men in sheds, which I've seen grow over the last few years, and a fantastic Isle of Wight prostate cancer support group, which for many of us here as men, if it wasn't for them, we perhaps wouldn't have got the treatment, and definitely in my case, the treatment and the eventually operations, which would mean that I'm actually able to be here with you tonight. Their work and support is important. They save lives, and I ask you and your support for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lilley. Councillor Garrett, a second.
If I may, Chair, I'll reserve my right because I'm sure others would want to speak.
Any members like to comment on what is a very poignant and important motion? Councillor Quigley, Richard.
Just very briefly, it's very easy for us all every year or whenever these things come, just to say, yes, we all support it, but I'd like to congratulate Councillor Lilley on actually doing something about it in his day-to-day life and making us all aware every year and at every opportunity. So well done, Councillor Lilley.
Well, I actually will. This weekend I was at a veterans party. I have to be careful there. Let's call it a social. Let's call it a social. Up in the gorgeous city of Bath, where many of us resided and worked in the early 90s. Not all of us are left, unfortunately. Not all through war injuries and issues, but some people bring that home with them. See, Councillor Ward is still here and with us, but it's an interesting one because we were all talking about our ailments these days. It's like, morning, how do you get up? Well, I got a stretch now, and it's and we're going through it. And there's a guy there, Phil, who's going through cancer at the moment. He's a year younger than me, so 53. far better looking, no grey hair, doesn't do council. And he's there having a beer. We don't drink heavily because PTSD and beer do not mix well. Through a syringe. He's still living his life and enjoying a party and a fun with his friends. Going through this, he's not out of it yet. It might still go the wrong way. Another chap, friend of mine called Nick, it was all shared that he had suicidal tendencies. The thoughts, Michael, and it's what brings you back from the edge. And this is so prevalent through ex-forces and forces. Another friend of mine, he had a neurology operation. None of us knew about this because you don't talk about it. The wives are there as well, and we had a darn fine, enjoyable party. For us, we've got veteran outreach support and things like that. So the issues that you've noted in here are so prevalent, and often soldiers, and I'm sure Ian will agree with me, we don't come forward, do we? We're grrr. It's like the Monty Python sketch. It's merely a flesh wound as your leg falls off or something daft. But as you get older, it creeps up with you. It does. So these projects like Men Only and Men in Sheds are absolutely vital. So thank you for bringing it tonight. And I, of course, will be supporting it. Thank you. Councillor Andre.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard a lot about training tonight. And actually on the 5th of this month, I attended a whole morning's training specifically on suicide prevention in respect of domestic abuse. And we know that domestic abuse is something that doesn't just affect women, it affects men as well. I think the statistics that we've heard tonight have really brought things into sharp focus. I think there are many of us in this chamber tonight that will have some kind of lived experience. But one of the things that I took from the training is, let's not make this taboo. Let's not make it stigma. I think we should be talking about this. One of the things that really important things that they really reinforced on the course, you will not encourage somebody to commit suicide by talking about it. And I think I would thoroughly urge all councillors, there's some excellent training out there to take advantage of it, because you don't know, you may well save a life. Thank you.
Very true. Thank you, Councillor Andre. Matthew, Councillor Price.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think this motion really hits the spot. You know, there's lots of people in all our lives that maybe we don't realise are depressed or lonely, and loneliness, I think, is must be a really big part of what leads people to either take their own life or live a very strenuous time when they're suffering with their mental health in particular from loneliness. And I think, sometimes just thinking of other people and thinking, sometimes just a text or a phone call or just knocking someone's door when you wouldn't normally do that. I try and do that when I can. I've been blessed with coming from, not always a blessing, coming from a large family where I've got lots and lots of people around me. And being in a family business where I've got lots and lots of people that sort of complement my life and give me support all the time, which I really try not to take for granted. So, loneliness, I think, is something we all need to really watch out for, and just, see if there's any way that we can make sure that if there's someone that looks isolated, even if we don't know them that well, just even sometimes just a word could help. And I will mention it. We're working on a little project up on Pan, and it's to complement other services. If anyone wants to discuss that project outside of here, it's something that we're in the early stages of, but it's very much going to be tailored to cars and engineering, the motor trade and stuff. But what we're hoping is that we can bring in lots of people that maybe have either fallen out of that career or have an interest and don't know how to come into that kind of environment, but a place maybe where people can socialise and do something that they wouldn't have thought they would be able to do. Thank you. And thank you to Michael for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you very much. Councillor Redrup, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Michael, for bringing this forward, and particularly for mentioning the Isle of Wight Prostate Cancer Society. So, to my dad, Councillor Redrup the elder, he can't be here today, unfortunately, but I know that he would have really appreciated you mentioning this. So my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Oh God, I think it must be about almost 2 years ago now. But last November, he spent the entirety of November walking from his house to Newport for charity, for a prostate cancer charity. And he spoke to a lot of people on the way about prostate cancer. And one thing that surprised him was just how many people have been touched by prostate cancer, either experienced themselves or know someone who has. So yeah, before I get emotional, I'll just say thank you very much, and I support this motion.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Councillor Garrett, you've reserved your right, and I'm conscious of time.
I too am conscious of that time. I think it was Councillor Andre who said about the importance, or introduced the idea of the importance of talking. It is very, very important to talk to people and understand the codes that they may use. It's 11 years since I walked into a doctor's surgery on March 14th, 2014 and broke down in tears. I got signed off with generalized anxiety and depression, and spent 6 months signed off in two periods. I share that because I think it's important to share your experience with others, to allow people to recognize that you can talk about yourself. What I would say, if anybody asks me a question and says, how you doing? And I say, I'm coping, that's probably my code that I'm not in quite as good a place as I was. And normally I'm in a very good place, and I'm very, very lucky to have a very loving family, incredibly loving husband who keeps me in check and keeps my mood up all of the time. But I even now, I still feel that time when my mood drops, and I recall those times. I'm not the only councillor to have spoken openly about this. Those of us who were on in the previous term of us will remember the former councillor Chris Whitehouse, who spoke very movingly and very touchingly of his own experiences, far more challenging to him than those that I've experienced myself. But I would say to anybody, and this is a motion about men, and men are terrible at talking, other than in the gay community, we're really good on the whole. But even so, sometimes not. But men generally don't talk about the matters that affect them in this way, and they should, and they absolutely should. Councillor Lilley has, in all my time on this council, has championed mental health, championed men's health, championed all people's health. I'm very grateful to you, Michael, for bringing it to us tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett, and thank you for your openness this evening. We're on a very, very public forum. It's very naked. Don't. That'll get us another report. Now, Councillor Lilley, would you like care to sum up?
I think we go straight to the vote, but I do say to people, if you are in Ryde on a Monday particularly, you'll see about 30 men have a community meal together. And I talked to those men last week when I was sitting down and having a very nice roast dinner. And one of the things was about loneliness. And one young man says, I have attempted to commit suicide nearly 5 times. But now I come every Monday and I know there are a set of people who are listening to me. We need to keep these little oases of safe space open and available. My last very quick thing is in my motion, I talk about sanitary waste, things into men's toilets, and I've noticed they aren't in council buildings, those available. And some of us who've gone through the prostate cancer have to put our embarrassing nappies that we have to wear occasionally somewhere. And I think if we as a council can look at that issue, it would be very well respected. So I move to the motion. Thank you.
All those in favour, please raise. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Councillors, thank you for what has been the most wonderful, I think, meeting that I've had in 4.5 years. I can't really add much more to it tonight. It's been emotional for so many different reasons, but respectful, with dignity, and I hope and I believe, genuinely have acted in our community's best interest this evening and the Isle of Wight. I'd like to thank Mr. Penn as well, and everybody for acting responsibly with dignity and respect. Thank you very much, and tonight's meeting is closed. Thank you.